Jimbo Fisher said it best. Home is home. What does that mean, man? And what are all these rumors about Jimbo being the next coach at West Virginia if Neal's out? Well, that's the topic. You better stick around. You don't want to miss this one. This is a Locked On crossover episode.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host for this edition of Locked On Crossover. Thank you for joining, guys, and making Locked On West Virginia and Texas A&M your first listen every single day, and for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every single day. Obviously, this episode is going to be brought to you by FanDuel, guys. We love FanDuel around here, and you can get a big return on FanDuel right now. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets, but that's if you win your first $5 bet. Join FanDuel.com to get started today. Not just Texas A&M in the house, though. We've got somebody that a lot of you guys are familiar with, man, somebody that I haven't had on in a long time. I think it's past due time for this to happen. I did a show with him not long ago, maybe a week ago. So we're going to have two guys come on and talk about this awesome topic. Obviously, we have Andrew from Locked On Aggies, and we've got Coos in the house, man, from Coos' Corner. Can't really do no better than that. What's up, fellas?
What's up,
How's it
guys?
going?
Welcome, man. So this is a fun topic. You know, we're all kind of excited to get into this, and we're really grateful to you, Andrew, for coming on. I didn't want to butcher your last name, but I'm going to try Stefaniak. Is that it?
Stefaniak, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Thanks for joining, man. And this is going to be fun. Obviously, there are things that can still happen, and obviously there is a chance, although it gets slimmer by the day that Neal Brown returns at West Virginia. Jimbo seems to be the leader in-house to make the jump back into coaching at West Virginia. And I want to get your opinion first. What kind of coach is this guy? And what's it like being a fan of a Jimbo Fisher coach team?
It's really, really an interesting topic. I'm going to try and give you some positives, and I'm going to give you some negatives. I'm going to shoot all Mountaineer fans straight as we sit here and talk about this. You know, it wasn't the best tenure at Texas A&M for Jimbo Fisher. And you look at this, and it's really hard to sit here and talk positive, knowing, I mean, he had a top 5 recruiting class pretty much every single season he was in College Station. He had the talent, and he didn't do much with it. I mean, there was the 2020 COVID season where you could argue A&M kind of got hosed not being in the playoff. Right. But, you know, looking at it, besides that, there wasn't much success at Texas A&M, and you could really argue those last few years at Florida State, there wasn't much success. I mean, obviously, everyone knows the name Jameis Winston, but I mean, if you look, there not much special happened down there in Tallahassee after kind of the 2014 season. So, I think Jimbo Fisher seems to me like the type of guy that maybe a refresh, something fresh, something new, could bring back his coaching career, but it would be really interesting to see if he does take this job. Will he be successful? Because there's a chance, but it'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Coos, I think you fall probably on the more in the middle, closer maybe to the would want Jimbo Fisher in Morgantown. I want to speak for you. What are your thoughts on the situation, and what do you think about the things he just said? And do you think he translates? I mean, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I'd like to respectfully push back a little bit on what Andrew said there. I mean, when you look at his tenure at Florida State, he had double-digit win seasons all but 2 years. That was in 2011 when they won 9 games, and then his last season in 2017 when they were 5-6. Every other year he won at least 10 games, including a national title in 2013. I mean, so yes, his tenure didn't end well there, but I mean, it was just one bad season, and he left on his own accord, if I remember correctly. He did not get fired. So, you know, he left on his own because the A&M job was a better opportunity in his mind. And at A&M, you know, it's hard to argue. Yes, he had those high recruiting classes, and he did not do with it what he should have. I will agree with that. But I will push back and say he was playing in not only arguably the toughest conference in the country, but the toughest division in the country. He had to play Alabama, LSU, and Auburn every single year. And then you throw in the fact, Ole Miss, they were on the way up at that time too. They were having top 15 and top 20 recruiting classes starting in 2018 as well when he got there. So the SEC West was an extremely, extremely tough division to play in. In Texas A&M, in my opinion, their expectations were way too high for him. I just don't – Texas A&M is not – no offense to them. They're not an Alabama. They're not Ohio State. They're not Texas. Sorry, I shouldn't have said Texas. The fans will hate me now. But you get the point. They're not known as one of those blue blood programs. They have a huge fan base, a very passionate fan base, and they're a very good program. But in my opinion, their expectations were too high for Jimbo, and I just don't think – I don't think any coach was going to do any better with what he had there. And that's too, maybe he just wasn't a fit. Maybe his personality, maybe his style of coaching wasn't a fit there. I think that's also something you could consider.
That's a great thing. And I'll give you a chance to respond if you want to, Andrew. But I just wanted to add in, what about him just being kind of for lack of a better term, kind of an ass, right? Like you hear he wouldn't let players wear certain jersey colors. Like, is he really that hard to deal with, or is that overblown?
He's that hard to deal with. That's not overblown. He's just a lot of people aren't big Jimbo Fisher fans. A lot of people I know, a lot of people I respect, a lot of people that I think are solid judges of character are not big Jimbo Fisher fans. Every time I've interviewed him, I have had no complaints personally, and that's only a handful of times, but I've never had personal issues with Jimbo Fisher, but I know a lot of people that just aren't big fans of his. But at the end of the day, I'll call a spade a spade. I mean, I don't know how much y'all care about basketball. I think Dan Hurley, you could make the same comment, and he's won back-to-back national championships. I think sometimes you kind of got to be, that type of person to be successful. I mean, it's part of coaching. And once again, here's the deal. Coaching, we all work in the media, and that's part of it. But at the end of the day, we care about winning football games. If Jimbo Fisher comes to Morgantown and isn't maybe the best to the media and maybe doesn't let the players wear these jerseys, but they win a championship, I don't think a lot of people are going to care. So it's kind of two schools of thought to look at that. I agree he's hard to deal with, but if he comes in and wins football games, I don't think people are going to care as much about it. But it's definitely, you want to coach who the fan base loves, and it's easy to get behind.
I love those points. Something I want to point out too, Kuz brought some stats up, so I will throw some that I've said a few times recently. You look at, he was 6-12 versus Power 4 opponents his last 18 games. He didn't win a road game for 2 straight years at one point. That's hard for me to get behind, coming off of this Neal Brown stuff. Mm-hmm. You lost to an FCS program when you were at Texas A&M. Obviously, it can happen. It happened to Michigan. Yeah. I just think, underachieved really is how I feel he did. And the biggest question in my mind that I can't get rid of, Andrew and Coos, is, okay, you had one of the best budgets in America. West Virginia spent $3.5 million on NIL last year, Andrew. That's what we had. Can he do more with less? Because he couldn't do more with more. That's my big question, and I don't know the answer. And if he's from West Virginia, we all love West Virginians, and I don't think that automatically makes him as fit like some people do. I have questions, and I think that's fair to have. I wouldn't be shocked if he succeeded either, if he maybe had a reality check, but he was really difficult to get to change. Similar to kind of what we have now. Didn't want to fire his buddies, didn't want to make changes at offensive coordinator, different things like that. So what do you think about that, Coos?
It's fair. He has, it was kind of obvious in the media. It was openly talked about where he did not want to change. He did not want to give up play calling, all that. So that part I agree with. And I do understand that is one of the questions for me is he still going to be that stubborn? And is he going to be willing to make any changes? I have questions whether or not his offense is still high-powered and potent enough to win at the Power 4 level. Now, maybe it is in the Big 12. I don't know. That's a question that we will not know the answer to unless he gets the job, right?
Yeah.
But when you talk about culture, being from West Virginia is only part of it. West Virginia is a unique place, and I'm sure A&M is as well. But you need somebody that can really talk to a recruit about what it means to represent that state, the entire state of West Virginia. There's no pro teams in this state. We live and breathe and bleed gold and blue.
Right.
Jimbo Fisher can explain that to a recruit because he grew up 30 minutes from the campus.
Right.
You know what I mean? He gets it. His dad was a coal miner. I mean, and I think that matters. It ain't the end all be all, and it doesn't mean a coach can succeed. I mean, Don Nealon wasn't from West Virginia, so you don't have to be, but I do think it helps. And when you walk into a living room with 2 national championship rings on your finger, you can't tell me that's not going to matter.
Sure. Guys, we'll continue this discussion here in a second. We got to go to break. Stick around for that. But I think up next, we need to talk about Jimbo as a fit in West Virginia. Obviously he's from West Virginia, but is he a fit? Because we've heard that he's kind of an ass. We've heard that he's kind of harsh to deal with. How would our media, that can be pretty sensitive sometimes, deal with the personality like Jimbo? I think that's a good conversation. And how likely is all this to happen? We're going to talk about it all. Stick around, guys. This is Locked On Crossover with Texas A&M and West Virginia. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, guys. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now customers can get $5 if you spend the $150, guys. You get $150 back for $5. That's if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, be the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. That's at FanDuel.com. To do that, to join, guys. Don't forget about $5. You win. You get $150. Can't beat that. Not even at Walmart. Looking at FanDuel, guys, as well right now. West Virginia Gonzaga, 15.5 points to the Zags tonight. It's going to be tough sledding for the Mountaineers. Let's see how they perform under that kind of pressure. And we are back, guys, on Locked On Crossover with Locked On West Virginia, Locked On Aggies, and obviously we have Kuz's Corner here. You know what's funny is the graphic that I had the Aggies logo. It's got the Rams on it. I just noticed that. And you know what's funny is I had it right, but I added Kuz to the show like 5 minutes before. So I apologize to Andrew for not adding your logo.
No, you're good. That's funny.
Right. Yeah, Locked On Rams. Are you a Rams fan?
No, I mean, but I have Cooper Kupp on my fantasy team, so yeah.
Okay. Well, then we made it work by 5th-degree separation. Thank you to almost 200 of you guys in here right now. Really meaningful. Make sure you check out these two fellas on social media. Those of you on X, if you're there, go follow us on X right now. Thank you to those on YouTube. Follow us all everywhere you can see down below. So I think this is a fun question. Is Jimbo a fit? Because you make the assumption he's from West Virginia. Of course he's a fit. But, man, he hasn't been in West Virginia been a long time. He's been down south. He's been southwest. What do you guys think about that? Whoever didn't talk last can go next.
I'll let Andrew go first.
You know, it's obviously y'all know more about his fit to West Virginia, knowing the program better than me. But what I'll tell you is I think that matters. I do. I think being from West Virginia, understanding the programs, kind of, I come from Lexington, Kentucky. We don't have any pro sports teams here either. I understand it. It reminds me of the Mark Pope hire. Obviously, Mark Pope isn't from here. Mark Pope was, but he transferred here, played here, won a championship here. And people have really accepted it. You're right. He sits down with some championship rings to recruits. I just think there's something about bringing home a guy that means a lot to your state. Jimbo Fisher is a guy that you'd say, hey, he's not a West Virginia coach, but I mean, he's a successful person that hails from our state. His dad was a coal miner. I mean, a lot that matters. A lot that matters to people from your all's wonderful state. And so the fit for him personally, I will let you all speak on that, but I just think that stuff matters. And he's a guy that I think deserves another shot in coaching. It didn't work out in College Station. I think he'd have to be willing to be open to letting someone call plays, being more open to using help. But I believe that he could turn it around, and I don't think there's any place better to do it than what is home for him.
It's funny because Neal Brown's obviously from Danville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So
Mark Perry. I don't know if y'all remember that name, Mark Perry. He coached at West Virginia for a little while. He was my high school football coach.
Okay,
he did
cool.
some kind of He did something. He came with Neal Brown. He did something there. I don't know.
I remember the name.
Yeah.
What do you think about Jimbo as a fit? Is it just pretty much a home run?
I mean, I think in most ways, yes. I mean, I kind of touched on it in the last segment. I didn't mean to jump ahead, but I mean, obviously being from the state matters, but most importantly than that, like I said, he can relate to the people of West Virginia, to recruits who come in, and when he sits down in an interview, and these are small minor details that at the end of the day don't win football games, but when you sit down and talk to the media and you've got that West Virginia accent, I mean, that kind of stuff, I think it will be easy for him to ingrain himself to the fan base. You mentioned the media, Paul, in your intro there, but intro to this segment, and that is something you think about, but I don't really give a crap how a guy is with the media, to be honest with you. If he wins football games and he does things the right way, and I'm okay with it. I mean, heck, a lot of people got mad at Dane Holgerson because he threw temper tantrums on the sidelines. I had no issue with it.
Right.
I mean, I thought it shows passion and competitiveness.
Exactly. And it'll be a far stretch from what Neal is, right? He's not, I mean, he can be on the sidelines, but generally he's kind of like, you get the impression he doesn't care, although I think he does. It's not that Neal doesn't care, but he can't come off like he does sometimes. Right. So that matters too. Did you have more to say?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I just wanted to reiterate that I think, I'll agree with Andrew. I do think he deserves a second chance. And how often does West Virginia have an opportunity to go snag a coach with the pedigree of a Jimbo Fisher? It might be a once in a lifetime opportunity, man, and I think they need to take advantage of it. And you might be able to get him at a discount because of he's already getting $10 million from A&M every year.
That's how you sell it to a guy like me is obviously West Virginia. And look, I think this goes for any coaching job, but if the only reason you're not making a change is financial, that's a bad reason. That can't be the only thing that holds you back. Like there has to be some belief in the coach. It can't just be, well, we can't afford it. Like you go figure that out, that part. If you're a serious program, you figure that the heck out. So outside of that with Neal, I'm going to assume if he returns, there's some kind of belief in the funds that are going to be available next year or whatever. But if that's not the case, you also better be able to tell me that, hey, this Jimbo guy is going to give us a discount. We're still going to be able to use the full-fledged revenue sharing that we have for next year and that kind of stuff, because it's not a talent issue. I have no doubt that he can bring in the right talent. And look, here's another thing that you just can't quantify. Those same staff members that are on that A&M staff aren't going to be the same staff members that he has at West Virginia, and that changes a lot. It's like literally millions of different scenarios that can play out just based on your staff, right? If you add 6 or 8 new guys that are coaching a team to another team, you get myriads of other decisions and players that you wouldn't have otherwise had. So, it's not that it can't work with Jimbo, but it definitely didn't work very well with the last place. And I think you're only as good as your last word in some cases, but I could be sold on it.
Yeah. One more thing I want to add, talking about relationships with donors is also extremely important.
Yeah.
And if you want to, and I think Jimbo would do a really good job, in my opinion. Again, I don't know Jimbo personally. I've never met him or anything like that, but just based on his personality and him being from the state, I think it would be easier for him to be embraced by the donors. And a lot of them may already even know him because he's from the area. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure he already has some connections. His family has always lived. His family never left West Virginia. So he still comes back to the state. And I'm sure he still has a lot of his connections and sources there. So I think that relationship with donors would also be very important. Let me reiterate, when I say discount, I don't mean Jimbo is going to come in and coach for $1 million a year.
Right.
But I think as long as you pay him a fair salary, pay him the same where you were going to pay somebody else. He's not going to, I don't think he's going to say, hey, I'll coach for free. I mean, he's going to want to be treated fairly. We're all human. We all want to be treated fairly, but
it's a status thing.
Correct. But I think, you're not going to have to pay him 7, 8. I don't think you're going to have to pay him 7, 8 million a year either, which is probably what he would demand were it not for being his home school and not for the buyout money he's already getting. That's what
Andrew,
I meant by discount, by the way.
Gotcha. It makes total sense. I do. I think it makes total sense. So, Andrew, what are some things that Jimbo did well at Texas A&M? Obviously, we've spent a lot of time on focusing. I have probably more as the host, focusing on some stuff he did wrong. What are some things you feel he did right, if you can think of any?
At the end of the day, and it does matter. And I know you could say, well, Texas A&M has all the money in the world, whatever you want, but he's still recruited well. I believe in Jimbo Fisher's ability to recruit. The thing that's going to be interesting is the way he's going to develop talent. Yeah. I mean, we've even seen this year with Elko down in College Station. I think that he's done a better job just in his months there of developing the talent than Jimbo did. I mean, guys, I'm really trying. I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. It's hard to dive into more things he did well with that. I think he did a good job. Now, I'll throw something at you. I mean, in college football, you get a lot thrown at you. Things happen. Texas A&M lost their starting quarterback every year, I think probably in my lifetime. And Jimbo Fisher still found a way to win football games, sometimes on I mean, he beat Alabama with a guy named Zach Calzada. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he can good. If he gets a guy and keep a guy healthy, maybe things are different. I mean, even last year at Texas A&M, in the bowl game against Oklahoma State, it's funny now, Marcel Reed, who's now A&M starter, he was a 4-string quarterback who played that bowl game. I mean, things did not go his way at times. You can't point every finger right at Jimbo Fisher. So I would say he recruited well, and I believe that he'd be able to recruit at West Virginia. I do believe that. It then comes down to the X's and O's and the development of talent. One of my big issues with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M was, I mean, we talked about it. He couldn't win a road game. I'm not saying it's supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. This is the SEC, but you got to find a way to win them. So that's kind of worry. There.
That's a big worry for me, coming off what we're coming off of when we're looking at a guy that's never been ranked in 6 years, that struggles so bad on the road. Scary for me to go
until
through.
This year.
Yeah. Well, teams on the road, you know.
This year we struggled at home, so he's going to struggle somewhere every year.
Upset next on Locked On Crossover, guys. How soon could he win if he came to West Virginia? I think it's a valid question, and we'll answer a couple other things. Stick around, guys. This is Locked On West Virginia, Texas A&M with a little Couz's Corner in crossover. And we are back already. No ad reads today, which is pretty good. We rarely get those. You got to be happy about that. So back with Andrew and Couz again. Man, I got to say, this is the question I have almost I lie awake thinking about. Like, you think of a guy like you look at a guy like Signetti, or a guy like even Sonny Dykes in year one at Texas TCU. They've got a lot of people out there that are winning fast, even Deion's in year two, right? And it's an interesting case study with the portal. I think Jimbo probably could have learned a lot on the sidelines and maybe has figured out some things that he maybe was too close to the situation to at Texas A&M. How quick could he win at a place like West Virginia that, let's just be honest, man, top 15 all time in wins? We played national championship games. We won several BCS games. We playoffs now. We're a proud program. We want to win. Andrew?
How quick could he win is going to be interesting. And, I think it'll all come down to, and it's what it does in this day and age of college football, is what he does in the transfer portal. Yeah. I mean, I'm a believer now. You're a quarterback away from any team being good at the transfer portal.
Right.
I mean, seriously, you go get yourself a guy in the portal. Obviously, you need linemen. You need him. He's got to throw it to somebody. But, I mean, you go get a quarterback, you can find weapons and offensive linemen to be serviceable. You go get that quarterback, you can win games. So, I mean, in the landscape of college football now, he could win immediately. Now, I'm not sitting here saying, like, playoff, but, I mean, he could. I believe Jimbo Fisher could give you a winning season in year one if you win got him. And, I know that would probably get fans really excited for the future.
Of course. What do you think, Couz?
I agree. I mean, to be honest with you, if you look at Jimbo's career, he's always gotten off to a really good start. It's at the end of his tenures where he started to struggle. I was talking to a Florida State fan that I know recently, and I asked him his opinion. I said, "Hey, man, what do you think about, what would you think about Jimbo if he came? Do you think he could do well at West Virginia?" And their answer was, they think he would do great at West Virginia. They said Jimbo's really good at coming in, rebuilding a program, getting it on its feet, putting it up, getting it to national relevance and competing for conference titles or whatever, and then he kind of fades off into oblivion. So I think he could win quickly. The biggest question for me with Jimbo is, could he sustain it? Mm-hmm. That would be my biggest question mark. I have no doubt he could, because I think, with the national championship rings, I think West Virginia would get an influx of NIL money if he got hired. I'll be honest with you. I don't know that. That's just an opinion. I think a lot of donors would support him and throw money at the program. I think fans would get excited, and I think they would support the program. I think that would help him go out and get some transfers. I think he would. I think our high school recruiting would bump up significantly. But could he be there long enough to see that through? One of the issues at A&M to me, when you look at, he had that number one recruiting class he had was in 2021. When 2023, when he got canned, those guys were only sophomores. If he had time to play that out and stay another year or two, he might could have won with those guys. Now, I know some of them left the program. I get that with the portal, but everybody talked about the number one recruiting class. Well, my God, the guys were just sophomores at the time, man. You didn't even give him time to develop them and win with those guys for 3 to 4 years. And I don't really think that was fair to him.
And I think that's a big misconception about is like you're exactly right, Q's. Talking about people said, well, everybody left. That's not true. He had a lot of that recruiting class that was still there. That was the narrative. Well, everyone left. It's all gone. No, about 75% of a class that had like 16 5-stars is still here. Right. So that's a good point. I agree with what you're saying there.
Do you think there are any players on the current roster, and I don't want to speculate too harsh on this, that were big Jimbo guys? Like, is he the kind of coach you see players leaving their current place to go play for? Or obviously, I don't want to say. Maybe that's not a fair question to even ask you.
That's a tough one. It seems like there were some guys. Linebacker Terrion York, I think, seemed to be a big fan of Jimbo Fisher, and I think our left tackle Trey Zoon was a big Jimbo Fisher guy. I don't know if there'd be Texas A&M guys lining up to go play for him, but people that I believe his players. It's not like the players like were singing pray like from the high heavens when he got fired. It didn't seem like that to me. I think players want to play for Jimbo Fisher. Would he pull anybody from A&M? I don't know about that. Right. But what I would say is I think players are going to want to play for Jimbo Fisher, and I think he's solid at building relationships with players.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say too, the counterpoint to your those guys were just sophomores. Coos is, he had several top 5 classes though. So like he had year in, year out, he had top 5.
Top 10 anyway. He was there were top 10 about every year anyway. A couple top 5s in there, yeah.
I think you're supposed to win better than 8-ish.
I think he was missing that stud quarterback.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Maybe. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Things go wrong. You say the same thing about Brown, Neal.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. But at the end of the day, to be fair, it's on, if he wasn't able to recruit a quarterback, that still falls at his feet, right?
Last thing really quick here, Andrew. What about his offense, man? People call it an antiquated. What would you classify his offense as? Is it a spread attack? Is it a pro style attack? It's somewhere in the middle, West Coast. What is it?
I think there's a lot of different it's a diverse offense in that I think there's a lot of variations of all of those offenses in it. You see, and he's had some different style of quarterback during his time at A&M to where he could kind of do some different things. So I would say he can be a chameleon when it comes to his offense, but at the same time, I think that he has a type of quarterback that he wants to come in and be his guy. And it's like Connor Wigman was a vision. Obviously, Jameis Winston. There was some Mond is the guy. Like there's some different quarterbacks that fit into what Jimbo Fisher wanted to do. So what I would say to that is I think that he's going to find a quarterback and see that quarterback and say, what do I need to do to create an offense that succeeds around this quarterback? But I'll just be honest with you, it was not successful during the tail end of his tenure. Kind of like what you're saying, Kuz. I mean, he starts off hot, kind of cools down. That's the question. So my big question would be Jimbo Fisher, this offensive guru, that we've heard about since his time at FSU. Is the offense dead, or does he still got something left in him? It kind of reminds me of Malzahn at Auburn. I mean, it kind of just stopped working.
Yeah.
Does Jimbo Fisher still have a little bit of that stuff left in him? And I just don't know, but this would be a good opportunity to find out.
Yeah. It's 300 of you guys in here. Thank you guys all for joining us in an afternoon where a lot of you may be at work or out on the road or wherever you're at. You're ready for the West Virginia Gonzaga game. Make sure you go subscribe to Kuz's Corner and over at Locked On Aggies. I want to give you guys both a chance before we go to talk about everywhere you've got stuff going on.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So for me, all Locked On Aggie stuff. You can find me wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you at Locked On Aggies, wherever you get your podcasts, also on YouTube. I also do a lot of Kentucky work. If we ever bump into West Virginia in a basketball game, I am the publisher for the Kentucky Wildcats on SI site. So if West Virginia and Kentucky ever cross over in any way, you can find my stuff there as well. But my Twitter is at Andrew Stefaniak.
You can find me at Kuz's Corner on YouTube, and I do have some content up on podcasts as well, wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on X at Kuz206. For those of you listening, it's spelled COUZ 206 on X, Twitter, whatever you call it today. So come check me out there. I have a website, Kuz'sCorner.com. You can find some of my work over there. So, yeah, you can find me about anywhere. Just look for Kuz, and it'll probably pop up somewhere.
Everywhere except late for dinner.
That's right.
I don't even know if that fits there, but it sounded good to me in my head.
And I'm hungry too, so I'm gonna have to go eat after this.
So I think I got one question for you guys before we move on, or before we get into the show. At the end of the day, and this is just your gut feeling, if Neal Brown ends up gone, which is very likely after Texas Tech, especially if they lose, is West Virginia going to hire Jimbo? What is your gut feeling? I'm not saying any sources. What do you think? Is Jimbo the next coach at West Virginia if Neal's gone, in your opinion?
It makes a lot of sense to me now. I think he's a guy, didn't work out at the school I work for, but that doesn't define him. I mean, in life, you succeed, you fail. It's what life is. I think Jimbo Fisher is a good football coach. He's proven that he's had success. And I think it just makes too much sense. He's from West Virginia. He grew up close to the school. I mean, you all have talked me into it. I think it's a good fit. Give the guy another shot. See if he can come home and make something special happen in Morgantown.
So Kuz wins.
Right. I do work in sales for a living, Andrew. So you got to be careful. All right. My gut tells me, even though I would like to hire, my gut tells me that Wren would go another direction. I just think Wren Baker is a guy he's going to stretch a really wide net. He's not going to take the obvious guy. He's going to stretch a wide net, probably going to bring in somebody that he thinks is a better fit, maybe somebody from his past or someone he knows through his connections. You look at Wren Baker's history, hiring coaches, I think that's normally what he does. Maybe even somebody from the G5 level, even though fans don't want to hear that, or a good coordinator from somewhere. But I don't see Jimbo getting the job, but I would be excited if he did, personally.
And a lot of people think Nick Saban. Obviously, that would be the number one hire for anybody. Texas A&M will probably fire Mike Elko for that, right? I mean, like anybody would take Saban. We all know it's not going to happen, but I think one key component to this decision, right, we're a little bit over, but one key component to this is, remember, Nick Saban is very likely going to consult on this hire. What will he have to say about his former offensive coordinator? I think I would love to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. Great point.
Love to be a fly on the wall for that. So, look, he passed the test, I think, in my opinion, if he gets the job, because Saban said yes, then I say yes, right?
Yeah. I almost guarantee your Wren's going to talk to Nick about it. Almost.
No, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. So, All right, guys. Thanks for joining, man. This has been a fun one. For those of you that are watching, we made it over 300 mark. Really proud of that. Make sure you go subscribe to these guys. I've said it a couple times, and make sure you subscribe here too. Locked On West Virginia, Locked On Aggies, and Kuz's Corner, guys. Thank you for making Locked On West Virginia and Texas A&M your first listen. If you could do us a favor, though, guys, for your second listen, check out the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Drake Toll leads the conversation in conference realignment news, and he really pulls no punches when it comes to covering every team in the Big 12. Find Locked On Big 12 wherever you get your podcast or on YouTube. Got much else to say, guys. We'll see what happens after Tech this Saturday. Good luck to the Aggies in their game as well. You guys are right on that playoff threshold. We'll see how that ends up. It'd be cool for Elko to get that in year one. I will talk to you guys after the Gonzaga game. So come back here in a couple hours. We'll do a post game, and I'll see you then.
Thanks for having me on.